Hello everyone, my name is Dr. P. Pramod Kumar, Associate Professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, MLR Institute of Technology. Welcome back to the video lecture series on engineering mechanics. Today we are going to start our second unit, friction. The topic for today's video lecture is Introduction to Friction. The overview of today's presentation is we'll start with the definition of friction, advantages and disadvantages of friction, types of friction, the basic terminology associated with the friction, and then laws of friction. The definition of friction. Friction is a force that opposes the relative motion or tendency of motion between two contacting surfaces. Friction is an opposing force to the motion, and friction will be always opposite in the direction. Friction will be always in opposite direction to the force which is causing the motion. Or in other words, friction will be always opposite to the direction of motion of the body, and it will encounter at the contact surface. Look at the body which is resting on a horizontal plane. Its weight always acts in vertically downward direction. The weight is balanced by the normal reaction. Now the body is acted upon by a force P which is tending to move the body in its line of action. Then at the contact surface, the friction will come into play. If the force P is not sufficient to move the body will be at rest. In that case, the friction between the contact surfaces, that is body and the block, is called static friction. When the body starts moving along the force, then the friction between the contact surfaces is called kinetic friction. When two surfaces come in contact and one body moves over the other, the microscopic irregularities interlock and they resist the motion. The irregularities at the contact surfaces will lock the motion, and this resistance is called friction. The friction always parallel to the contact surface. This is parallel to the contact surface and opposite to the direction of motion. Here the body is tending to move towards or in the direction of applied force. Therefore, friction is in opposite direction to the applied force or motion of the body. Advantages of friction. It enables us to walk or run without slipping. It allows vehicles to move and stop. Brakes and clutches are the applications of friction. It helps in writing on paper. It enables holding and gripping objects. It is used in machinery for transmission like belts, clutches. And now disadvantages. It causes wear and tear of machine parts. It is the main disadvantage of the friction. It produces unwanted heat when the moving parts are in contact. It produces unwanted heat, and it reduces efficiency of the machine. See, if the input force required to move the body is more, then it will automatically reduce the efficiency. It requires extra energy to overcome. To move the body against friction, we need to apply more energy or more force. So it requires extra energy or force to overcome the friction. These are the main disadvantages of friction. Now, types of friction. Static friction. When the body is at rest and it is tending to move, the friction encountered between the contact surfaces is called static friction. The friction that acts at the contact surface when it is at rest, the bodies are at rest, and when the friction is preventing the motion, that friction is called static friction. Here the body is at rest. So in this case, the friction between the body and the plane is called static friction. Now, sliding friction. The friction acting when the body is sliding over another surface or another body is called sliding friction. It is a friction when the body is in motion. The sliding friction is the type of kinetic friction. When the bodies are sliding over another surface, the friction between the contact surfaces is called sliding friction. Now, rolling friction. The frictional force when the body rolls over another surface like wheels is called rolling friction. So here it is the rolling friction, this is sliding friction. The last one is turning friction. The friction exists when the body is turning relative to another body is called turning friction. When two bodies or when a body is turning over another with respect to another is called turning friction. Here is an example. Here two bodies are there pivoted at center. One body is trying to turn. The friction between the two bodies is called turning friction. The basic terminology associated with friction. Normal reaction. It is a perpendicular force exerted by the surface or another body opposite to the weight of the body. See, a body is resting on a horizontal plane. The weight always acts vertically downwards, and the weight is balanced by the normal reaction or reaction from the ground or reaction from the wall. The reaction always perpendicular to the contact surface. Here the contact surface is horizontal, therefore the reaction is vertical. Now, the body weight is balanced by the normal reaction so that the body will be at rest. The normal reaction is the reaction given by the surface or another body on which a body is resting. So, normal reaction is an important term in the friction. Then, limiting friction. When a body is subjected to, when this same body is subjected to a force, then the friction comes into play at the contact surface. If the friction is more than the applied force, the body will be at rest. Or in other words, if the applied force is not sufficient to overcome the friction at the contact surface, then the body will be at rest. Now, slightly increase the force P, the friction at the contact surface is also increases, and further increase the force P, then friction again it increases and the body remains at rest till the applied force P overcomes friction. If you further increase the applied force P and friction again increases, and it will be always equal to the applied force. The friction will be always equal and opposite to the applied force. But there is a limit to the friction. If you further increase the applied force, the friction will not cross its limit. It has a fixed limiting value. The maximum value of the friction before it starts moving along with the force is called limiting friction. It is the maximum friction in case of static friction. That means after the limiting friction value, the friction will not increase further, and if you further increase the force, the body starts moving and the body enters into motion. Till that point, the friction which is encountered between the contact surface is called static friction. So, it is the maximum value of the static friction. The limiting friction is the maximum value of the static friction. Very important term associated with friction is the coefficient of friction. The coefficient of friction is defined as the ratio of limiting friction to the normal reaction. Limiting friction to the normal reaction, it is always denoted by mu. It is denoted by mu, and it is a ratio of friction to normal reaction. Both are forces. It don't have any units. A friction, the quotient of friction is a unitless dimension, and it is a ratio of limiting friction to the normal reaction. Now, loss of static friction. The static friction increases with the applied force until it reaches the maximum value, which is called as limiting value. Limiting friction is proportional to the normal reaction and it bears a constant ratio with it. The ratio of limiting friction to normal reaction is always constant and it is called the quotient of friction. It is independent of area of contact. The friction does not depend on the area of contact, but it depends on the nature of the contact. It depends on the nature of contact. It depends on roughness or smoothness of the surface in contact, but it does not depend on area of the contacting surfaces. The friction is always equal and opposite to the applied force which is tending to move the body. Thank you.